Good evening, barflies and lounge lizards, and welcome to the Wacky World Book Club. I'm your host, R. Slim Sterling, and tonight we'll be taking a look at Dark Shadows, the Salem Branch by Lara Parker. But first, I'm going to do a little introduction to Dark Shadows for those of you who may not be familiar with it. So if you just want to skip on to the book review, just go to the time here. Let's get started. Dark Shadows was a TV series that ran from 1966 to 1971, and I was really late to the party on this one because all I'd ever heard about it was gothic soap opera, but it is so much more than that. It features heavy sci-fi elements, including multiple time travel arcs, alternate dimensions, and even a Lovecraftian storyline. And Dark Shadows did so many things first. It's kind of unbelievable. You want to talk about the first sympathetic vampire? That's Barnabas Collins. Now, Dark Shadows ran for 1,225 episodes, which I have actually seen in its entirety. It took a full year and a half, but I did it. But I do understand that is kind of an overwhelming commitment. So what you can do is they have taken several of the biggest story arcs and edited them together into several films. I began with The Vampire Curse, which tells the backstory of Barnabas. So all that being said, I still really wouldn't recommend this book to anyone who's not familiar with Dark Shadows in some way. I mean, you could read it and you would follow it, but you would really miss out on a lot. But for those of you that are familiar with Dark Shadows and the world, I'll go ahead and tell you about the actual book itself. But this takes place after the conclusion of the series. And it's actually the second book in 4 Miss Parker has written, continuing on and kind of finishing up Dark Shadows. I started with this one because the first one is the story of her character Angelique's past. But this was the first contemporary story, picking back up with, well, my two characters, Barnabas and Quentin. And in this story, the reluctant vampire Barnabas is now human. And he's not handling that very well. And he's realizing it's not all it's cracked up to be. And coincidentally, a new vampire seems to be on the loose. And a woman who, strangely, looks just like Angelique has bought the old house from Roger under mysterious circumstances. So Barnabas has a lot to deal with. And then it jumps back into the past with a witch named Miranda Duval during the Salem witch trials. So it goes back and forth between the present of 1970, I guess 71, back to the witch trials, back and forth, but they do end up connecting together. And the only quibble I have about this book is not even really a quibble, it's just a personal preference thing, is Miss Parker's writing is very flowery, very almost poetic. Whereas again, that's not any kind of fault of the writing. If that's your kind of writing, you're going to dig that a whole lot, especially if you like leaves. She talks about leaves, an unusual amount of leaf descriptions, and leaves even attack someone at one point. I mean, it's a whole lot of leaves. As I mentioned, just personal preference. But that being said, and I think that's a strength of the book, I still enjoyed it thoroughly, even with it not being my particular style of prose. I mean, she knows these characters, as I said, and it was quite good, and I quite looking forward to the next book in the series, which will be about Quentin. Wow, that was a tough sentence. And the last thing I wanted to discuss tonight is my Barnabas cane. And this was a gift from one of my most cherished viewers, Mr. Tony Santiago. And the weird thing about it is I was already planning to shoot this video today. Had my setup done, battery was charging, and this came in the mail today, right before I was going to film this video. Coincidence? I think not. And that's all the time we have for this week. Please like, comment, subscribe, and keep it wacky.